I never thought in my heart that I was an alcoholic.
Okay.
I didn't associate those two things. There is a world that you don't even know about of like teaching people just how to be a good teammate or hold them accountable or have some discipline to get the things done that you need to get done. I wake up looking up, all the lights are on in the car, airbags are deployed. I have no idea what happened. I didn't know I was even in a car. You know it's over. Like right then and there, you know it's over.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Man Minutes. Got an awesome guest for you today. It's my buddy Mike from Trouble Seas. He helps me with all of my media stuff. He runs an awesome company doing all sorts of social media, videography, filming, all that stuff. But we're going to dive into some really cool stuff. But we'll start off by just letting him you just introduce yourself, man.
Yep. Hi, I'm Mike Lanouar. I am the owner of Troubled Seas Media. I've been doing this for about 2 years now. Worked with you for almost a year and a half-ish. Yeah, so it's getting up there in time. I was a SWAT operator and soldier for a while, and then I had a life event happen, and talk about that in a little bit. And I had to transition quickly, started this media company, and now I've been doing that for 2 years, and it's been pretty awesome, taking me all over the world and stuff like that. So
Yeah, awesome, man. So where did you grow up here in Arizona?
Yep. So I born in Michigan, but I've lived here in Arizona most of my life. I grew up in Scottsdale, went to Coronado High School. I early on played professional paintball for a while, and I know that sounds funny, but
no, it's awesome.
It was actually pretty awesome. Traveled all over the country doing that. So I really wasn't involved heavily with like high school sports just because I was sponsored and traveling so much with the other stuff. So then I did odds and ends after high school. I didn't go to college. I did some college here and there. And then I joined the military. About 2008, I joined the military. So I was older. I was like 25 when I joined. So that was interesting, going to basic, being an older dude with a bunch of 18-year-olds. Did that. Then coming out of it, a year after me going to basic, I went to Iraq, 2010-11. Came back from that, literally a year to the date, went back to got hired by Scottsdale, was an officer, got through FTO, and then literally I went right back to Afghanistan for another 13-14, came back, and then after that got on the SWAT team with Scottsdale, and then a year after that I got on the full-time team.
Yeah, right on. I think that's when we met, right?
Yep. Yeah, then I took some courses with you, some sniper courses and some rifle courses. So that's where I initially met you and everything.
Right on, man. So like tons of experience there, right? Multiple deployments, all sorts of stuff. And something we've talked about in the past is like the compounding of events.
Yep.
Right? So for all you guys that have dealt with some of this stuff or been in these situations, man, like you see, obviously I was never in the military. I didn't do any of that stuff, but I'm sure you saw plenty of stuff between those two things and got involved in a lot of stuff. And then coming back and being a cop, and then you're seeing stuff often and more often and more often. And so like leading up to that, you're on the SWAT team for a while, and then kind of what happened? Just like a brief overview of stuff.
So I was on the team for 11 years, 7 of it as an operator with SAU for Scottsdale. Highest level, basically doing hostage rescues, doing all the stuff, street jumps. I was teaching. I was one of the lead instructors. I actually was a lead instructor for that SWAT school right before it, which will kind of play a little bit into it. Just an expert in my craft. And let me just tell you, I loved this. I lived and breathed, and operator was my life. I don't care if somebody's birthday was happening and I got a call out, I was going. There was never a time where I'd be like, I can't make this one. I was always there, always trying to be first on and go make a difference. So kind of what happened is I work, normal day, nothing adventurous or exciting or anything like got me spooked or like worked up. I went out, had some dinner, and my plan was just to have dinner and like go home. And this is going to play into it because I kind of learned something about myself, is that I went and I had one drink, and everybody can probably see where this is going, but like it turned into two, and then I'm not the kind of guy that's like that hard operator dude. Like I like talking to people. I like, you know, conversing and messing with people. A lot of people didn't even know like what I did for work because I just wasn't like that militaristic, like cutting dude. Yeah. So I'm making friends, we're taking shots. I end up drinking more than I thought I was going to. And then that kind of is where there's a whole gap in time and everything. And I can't tell because what happened is I ended up rear-ending somebody. Drunk, rear-ended somebody, and like the worst possible way too. I was in an unmarked UC vehicle with all my SWAT shit, and because I just came from work, so that's how I got there. I don't remember ever getting in the car, making that conscious decision to get in there, but it doesn't excuse it. Obviously, if I was drinking, I shouldn't have even put myself in that situation. So you'll see a theme in this is like everything that happened, I can easily point a finger, but I'm not going to. You're going to hear it kind of like I'll take ownership of it. I hit these people. I wake up, looking up, all the lights are on in the car. Airbags are deployed. I have no idea what happened. I didn't know I was even in a car. I get out. I go check on the people. They're not really injured, but kind of like they don't want to get out of the car. So kind of like that training kicked in, and like I don't even really remember the steps I took. I woke up in the car, lights are on, airbags deployed. I checked on the people. I come back and I like just stood around and waited for the PD to come.
What's up guys, Justin from Milmac Blades. As you probably already know, the Man Minutes is sponsored by Milmac Blades and our outdoor hunting line, Copper State Knife Company. If you haven't checked us out, make sure you do. We got all sorts of Ward Hunters in stock, different types of outdoor blades. We got your EDC blades, some daggers, all sorts of cool stuff. So if you haven't checked us out, go to the website, check us out on social, and go find something you like.
And they show up. It's everybody that I know, obviously. In the moment, I was intoxicated, and I was trying to like, I knew I messed up. Like I knew it.
I'm sure your brain just spinning.
You're done. But I'm also super concussed, and I'm intoxicated. So like on top of those two things, I ended up having a cut on my head. I don't even know how I got it. So I'm just like, you know it's over. Like you right then and there, you know it's over. Didn't know how far this was going to transpire, but I knew it was kind of the end. And I had this like weird thing happening where I was like in the moment I said some dumb stuff. Like once I get put in the back of the car, I'm like, oh, my fucking life's over. I'm going to kill myself, blah, blah, blah. Obviously I didn't mean those things. It was just almost like a reaction, like, you don't know what to do next, like and everybody just defaults to that word and like that feeling, and it was so far from the truth, and it was so far from what actually happened afterwards. But in the moment you just feel like, man, you know. And I get to the jail, and I gotta, you know, hand it to my department. They handled it absolutely phenomenal, treated me with utmost respect. Nobody ever talked down to me or was like, you idiot, or anything like that. Did nothing but take care of me throughout that process. And SAU guys came to my aid, and not aid, like nothing really aids you in that, but just really didn't abandon me. Like they
just there for you.
There for me, you know, like taking care of me, calling me, making sure everything was good. So after this happens, I realize, okay, what's next? I get put on suspension, obviously. I didn't get fired immediately, which was also another testament to Scottsdale, is they really tried to work with me, and this will come later in the story, but they really didn't like throw me to the wolves right away. Like they kind of like were like, okay, let's see where this goes. So I get suspended. Obviously my car's totaled, so they take that. They take all my gear, everything like that. And then the process of just like waiting to see what happens. I have a POSA rep. I pay into that. I do that thing. So I was told by a friend, hey, contact them and talk to them immediately. Like you don't know what's going to happen, so make sure that you use your rep. So I call my lawyer.
Like a union rep.
Yeah. So POSA, Steve, Steve Serbalik is a lawyer for them. He's the one who worked with me in my case. Phenomenal guy. Really had my best interest in mind, looked out for me, helped me immensely. Like, can't thank him enough for what he did for me. But the moment I meet him, we're talking and he's like, hey man, you like have like no emotion towards this. And I sat there to him and I was like, I'm just literally trying to understand like what's going on. Like I'm trying to understand the words you're saying. And he's like, did you ever get checked? And I was like, they checked me on scene, but I don't really remember or anything. So after I leave him, I go to the doctor and they're like,
and this is the same night?
This was the next day.
The next day, okay.
Yeah. So actually 2 days after, correction. So it happened late at night, obviously. The whole next day, I pretty much was like asleep and in and out. And I think this aided in it is that I had this concussion, so I really couldn't wrap my head around what just happened. Yeah. Like I didn't get the depth of like where this was going. Okay. And that helped me in the first 24 hours because I couldn't get my head wrapped around what was happening. So I didn't really dwell on things because I just couldn't, my head was just foggy.
Your brain wasn't letting you panic
Exactly,
too much, right?
It wasn't. It was like, you know, I really couldn't feel what was going on, if that makes sense. So I talked to him, he's telling me, hey man, you're being super weird. Like you have like no emotion towards this, what's going on? And I was like, I'm literally just trying to focus on your face and like what you're telling me. And he's like, go get checked out. So I go get checked out. Obviously I have this huge concussion. They're like, you hit your head pretty hard. So with that comes now all the stuff that I was doing, internal investigation, all that has to stop because they have to get cleared for medical. Yeah. So there was a little bit of time. And so we go through everything. Man, like you're going through everything. Like you're telling Serbalik and everybody everything. And the one thing I learned is that like, just you have to own what happened and you have to tell the truth. I easily could have been like, this was that and this and these things laid on me and this stress and this, but it really wasn't. What I learned is Steve's like, hey man, you need to go to AA every day from here on out. So you go into AA, you're gonna get help for drinking and you're going to come in and we're going to test you to make sure that you don't drink. So you're voluntarily pee testing with us and we're gonna like watch you to make sure you're not cheating the tests or anything like that. And in my head, I was like, and he was like, if you do this, there might be a road to you getting back to what you want to do, if that's what you want. I was like, let's go. Like, whatever you tell me. And that's where that like SWAT mentality came in, right? Tell me what I need to do and I'll go do it. Yeah. Like, I'll get the work done. So took off, went, did a meeting every day for 90 days. Actually continued past that, but I did a meeting every day. And what I learned is like, I walked in and, you know, and nobody knows what to expect. And I never thought in my heart that I was an alcoholic.
Okay.
I didn't associate those two things because if you're drinking right now, we could sit here and you could drink bourbon all day long and I can sit here and chill and it does not bother me. I'm not sitting there going, oh man, I really have to have some of that. Or like I wasn't drinking in the dark. There was no like demons in my body that were like, oh, I'm trying to drown them out with booze. Like it wasn't like that for me.
Okay, so that's interesting. So there was not like like looking back on it, there wasn't, because I think you hear that a lot with stories, right? And there's lots of different people deal with things differently, but it wasn't like, hey man, like I've been having a really hard time with X or Y, and that's when I started, and it like just continued for you. It was just...
No man, I feel like I was built for what I was doing in the aspect of mentally, I always knew what I was getting myself into. Deployments, I knew I was gonna see horrible shit. But in my heart, like I wanted to know that I was the man I thought I was. So when I went there, I always knew I was testing myself to be in those situations and be like, are you okay? Like, are you the guy that will run towards the guns? Or are you the guy that's gonna bounce and like, you know? And I knew it, but then I physically tested it and I knew I was capable of it. And so then after that, everything I saw, everything I did, I felt righteous in almost. Like I didn't feel that like terrible things were happening in the world, but I was the person to go stop those terrible things, you know? So like, exactly. So like the more terrible it was, the more I was like, I want to be there for it because I feel like I can handle it. Like I would like to take my you know, my position over somebody who I, you know, wouldn't want to see that, you know,
Yeah, 100%.
If a rookie cop's coming up and he's just starting his career and he doesn't really know what he's getting into, and I'm coming up as an operator and like I know what's up, I'm gonna jump in front of him and be like, hey man, I got this. Like you don't have to see this, or you don't have to do this, because I've already seen it and done it, and it never gave me nightmares or like, you know, other people.
I was just gonna say like, and I think that's such an interesting perspective, right? Because I think a lot of times when we hear stories, like everyone assumes like, hey, there was this huge incident, this happened, this is when things started going downhill, and it's not like that for everybody, right? And I think, like I feel the same way. Like there's been incidents I've been involved in, there's been stuff that I've done that bothered me, but it was never to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this job, or like that I would just start like having like freak out things happen. Like I've never been, I know it happens to lots of guys, right? I'm just saying, I think we've gotten in such a place now where that's what the assumption is. If, oh, you have like you have a bunch of PTSD, you had these huge traumatic events and you're just not dealing with them. Where I think there's lots of dudes that choose to do this type of work and get involved in it, and you do it and you're like I'm glad it's me. Like I'm good with it. Like I'm okay. Like it sucks. I don't want to see some of this shit. But I can handle it. Like bring it on. Like the wide shoulders thing, right? Like bring it on. I got this.
And you're 100% right. But everybody has a different outlook, right? There's some operators who see stuff that it does bother them, and they have different life scenarios that led them to feel that way towards it.
100%.
And I was always able to shoulder those things, like you said. But that was the dangerous part. Is I was elated with what I was doing. I felt amazing. I felt like I was accomplishing something. I felt like I was giving back. I was really serving my purpose in this world. And when you have that, and then you go out and drink, we do everything to excess, right? Like somebody told me this and it made so much sense, is you expect an operator to run headfirst into a door where people are shooting to go save a life. But you expect them to go home, turn it off, and sit on a couch and just watch TV and be the perfect person. Like, there comes a mentality with having that ability to switch that off of you. And the obsession and the time it takes to be that level, man, you're always doing things 10 times to excess. Like if you're studying something, you're going all out in it. You're shooting something, you're shooting your ability, you're putting everything you have into it. Well, when you're doing other things that are outside of work, you have that, it's hard to flip that switch. Like I can flip the switch of being angry and like in the moment fighting somebody to then helping them immediately after. Like that switch was always easy for me to flip. But the having fun, excess, like drinking with the friends, that's where I didn't know that that's a type of alcoholism. Like people don't tell you that, right? You just assume I'm having fun and everybody's doing it and we're all having a good time, right? But you don't notice that creeps up to 17 drinks in a week. And you're just, or you're going out and you're having 10 shots, throwing up in the bathroom and then coming back and doing it again and blacking out almost every time you go drink. You don't realize that that's excess because you're around a bunch of other people that are doing the same thing you are.
And you're not in your closet.
And you're not, exactly, right? Like you
pop off.
And you don't feel bad, and I'm not trying to drown it with everything. And that's the biggest, like, dangerous part about alcohol is like, if you don't have that control, which I didn't have that impulse control to like slow myself down, then you just always go to the full tilt, right? So I went to full tilt, and then, you know, I just didn't understand it. I never looked at it in that context until I walked into AA. And then I'm not saying like everybody should go to AA. I mean, I will say this, like AA is great, but also there's a different mentality than what we do. Their mentality is always remind themselves of the mess up to keep themselves accountable. For me, it's, I understand I messed up, let's move forward. Let's grow. I know I'm never gonna do that again, because that's the type of mentality we have. You make a mistake once, you move on, and you never make it again. You try at least. You know?
100%.
And that's what we do in the teams. We teach people, hey man, you're gonna make mistakes, but just don't repeat them. Don't make multiple ones. You know, when you're teaching entry, hey, you missed that door, just don't do that again, right? Like, everybody in the new, when they're learning, does that. But I just kept finding myself, these people telling these stories and really just like hitting, like hurt, like almost like hurting themselves to keep that pain alive, to be like, I have this problem. I just couldn't really relate with it.
Yeah.
It was super humbling, and it's interesting to hear other perspectives, and you can relate and pull things from it, but that's where I was like, kind of like, okay, what do I want to do here? So I ended up getting myself a sponsor, and then I just really worked through him a lot.
Okay.
I did my whole, like 90 and 90 is what it's called. I found out after. He just said go every day, but it was 90 and 90 is a program that they have.
90 meetings in 90
days and 90 meetings, yeah. Even when I traveled, I went to meetings, like even in Boston and stuff. And that was pretty cool because some of those guys with accents. And, like you hear like Vinny, I went down to the store and they always give me my stuff and it's just
a little different meeting in Boston.
Yeah. So they are awesome and they are good. And like I highly encourage people, if you feel like that's something that you're dealing with, like go get perspective. Like it doesn't hurt to go sit there.
No, and I think that's a huge point because I think when people think of like alcoholism, they think of like, hey, you wake up and you start your days off with the drink and you're constantly drunk all day, every day. It's just like this constant, like you're sneaking away at work to drink, you're sneaking. And I think, I don't know this to be true, but I would imagine, and just from friends and people I know, like the binging is way more predominant in like, I think, our type of dudes, right? Yeah. Just because, like you said, like, hey, when I'm in, I'm in. Yeah. Like, hey, dude, like we're gonna go. Like, hey, you can't expect me to be a 10 out of 10 on these things and then just not like, I'm just gonna hang out. Yeah. I'm gonna have sparkling water.
Yeah, and like, you work so hard that you want to have fun.
Yeah, you just want to let go.
Like you're constantly under pressure to perform at the highest level every day, and. You mentioned earlier, like, you're like, I never did military stuff, and I'm not trying to discredit any military dudes out there because I am one, but like, I feel like being the level of operator that you are here is equally as comparable. You just don't go home at the end of the night when you're overseas. Here you get to go home, but other than that, like the same amount of pressure, the same amount of like, you can't mess up, you have to be perfect every time is on you every moment. So when you're off of that, like you want to have fun, you want to let go, you just want to,
I can breathe for a minute.
Exactly. Yeah. And it just went a little far. And I learned that through this program. And I'm grateful that I went to it. I'm grateful that that happened to learn, that side of it. Because one of the stories in the book of AA is that one of the founders, he had the same thing. He would be able to not drink, but then when he did, he'd wake up 3 days later and not know like what happened, right? So it's, like, exactly. So there's that side to it. So, and I think that, like you said, that's more prevalent in what we do than anywhere else.
Yeah.
But some guys have control. So I didn't, and I learned from it. And then, so yeah, that changed the course of my life. Like,
yeah. So like, okay, so the incident happens, and like you said, like that first 24 hours, kind of 48 hours, you're not really understanding the depth of it. Mm-hmm. Like once you started to wrap your mind around it, like, hey, I'm a cop. I just got arrested. This is what's happening. Like, how did you deal with like all the thoughts? Like, were you like, holy crap, like what's gonna happen?
It was a weird time because the PD came back and was like, all right, listen, like until this happens, until we understand what's going on, we want to offer you a program. You prove that you're not drinking, we will bring you in to work the jail. You work the jail, we settle your case, whatever happens, and then if it's, settles how we think it could settle, you do your time in the jail, you work your way back to the road, and then eventually you can go back to doing what you were doing, if that's your choice.
Yeah.
But you got to ride it out in the jail. And I was like, bring it, like, let's go. Like, I'll help create programs. I know your DT and your firearms in your jail systems are trash. Like, nothing against them, but it's just they don't get the amount of training and respect as like the PD guys do.
Yeah, the detention guys get crushed.
Yeah.
Like,
and they're good dudes. They just
crushed.
And if they don't have the knowledge and they don't get the training, then how do you expect them to grow from that? So that's what happened. I went into work in the jail. I walked in with a smile on my face every day. I greeted everybody, and I think I gained a lot of respect from people out of that. I owned it 100%. There's details to the case. It's over now. I could talk about them, but I'm choosing not to. Like, no, not that. Is I don't ever want people to think that I'm like blaming the other people, right? It was my mistake.
Yeah.
I did it. I got in the car. I drove. I created that situation long before I hit those people and before I had them in it. So there's nuances to the case that never got brought out and that could have changed things, but it is
it's ownership, man. Like, and I think that's one of the things I respect the most about it, right? There's tons of people that have situations like this, and it's never their fault. It's never something they did, or it's a little bit of something they did, but it was so many other things, and it's just that victim mentality of like, poor me, and it's like, hey, dude, like, you've owned it since like it happened, and that's awesome.
So then I'm doing the jail thing. I'm creating programs. I'm already working towards getting firearm stuff going. I already had some DT incidents just because of my use of force. I knew how to use it. I knew when I could and couldn't use it. So teaching that, showing people like, controlling situations that people really couldn't control. It was fun to teach them and fun to like, it was terrible in the aspect of when you're in the detention, you're like in jail with everybody else. So them screaming all night, and I go back to not a detective's hours. I'm now working, midnight to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Pay cut, everything, right? Yeah. But I was like, this is my life. This is what I want to do. And if there's a road back, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So in this interim, back up a little bit, while I'm on the team, I'm shooting pictures for product, for like tier and people like that. So I kind of already had like this little bit of like a side hustle going with photography. So as I'm in the jail, I'm like, man, like I'm not making as much as I was. So I started trying to supplement that by like doing little projects here and there and picking those up. I get home one day, I open a letter, and it's like, you're being charged with 3 felony accounts. So it changed. And the part that's weird for me is like when I had these meetings, like everybody kind of knew where this was going to go, and that's why we went down this road. But I can't speak to who. I mean, I can, but we're not going to. But somebody changed the course of that by submitting charges in a way that like really was a gray area, right? Like people tuning in probably know a lot about the law, and like there's contested things like, what does actual disfigurement mean? Like, is that a permanent thing that never changes, or is that something that heals? Or so they were like, everybody tells me, hey, we're submitting these charges to county just to like cover ourselves so it doesn't show favoritism, even though this hasn't been done like that before, and they're not going to take it though, don't worry. And that's kind of where like I kind of got like, I'm like, the fact that you're even saying it is changing everything, like I thought that it was going to go this way, but it didn't. Man, you can hope for one thing and think, that everybody's being forthcoming or knows or doesn't know. I can never know for sure because I'm not those people. Yeah. But felony charges come through. With that, the PD's like, hey man, we got to suspend you again. Like, you can't carry a gun at work. Like, you're now under felony charges. So, we're going to have to suspend you. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I'm like, oh, you're suspending me, meaning like you're going to fire me.
Yeah, this is not going to.
While this happens, the news gets hold of it. So now the news is playing my picture, and the PD's calling me, the PIO's calling me, being like, hey man, like news is going to put your stuff out tonight at 5. Like, sorry, but this is what's happening. You don't get a choice in that. My chief was really cool with like saying, hey, we're not going to put his picture out right away. We're not going to release his booking photo. That was super cool of him because, obviously that would have painted a totally different picture coming into court and stuff like that. Yeah. So that happens. I go now to, well, man, like my income just went away. Like, I have no income coming in anymore. Like, I'm done. Like, I resign. I chose to resign instead of being fired. Mm-hmm. Semantics, but to me it felt better, Yeah. And then that's kind of what led me into this. And it was such a weird transition because you train for 2 decades of your life every day to do what you do. And now you can't do it anymore. And it's not like, and that's where the depth, I say, comes in, because not only can I not do it anymore, like I can never do it again. Like I can never go back.
You're not retiring and choosing to be done.
Correct.
Like someone is telling you, hey, like you can't do this here and you can't do it anywhere else.
Ever.
Like nothing.
You can't even do it privately. You can't do anything. You are done with serving And when you believe in like your heart that that's what you belong doing, it's so difficult to like.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I couldn't imagine. Yeah.
So with that, I don't even remember how it happened, but like we started talking, and you're like, hey man, if you want to come in, like help around the shop, like do some stuff around here and make some money, like I'm down to do that. And I started like, and it was this weird thing, like in an operator, when we teach people in SWAT school, we always say find work.
Mike always says operator, by the way.
Oh, sorry. We can't talk about operator.
It's my favorite word.
We are not doctors. No, we are police detectives. No, I'm just cool. I get it.
I'm just no. You say.
No, we had this conversation, so it's super funny.
We talk about it, and there's so many cops that'll say operator, SWAT operator. We at Phoenix I would never say operator. Like I don't know. It's funny.
You make
like
fun of me if I say it.
Yeah, sometimes I do. But my aunt worked for Bell Telephone Company way back in like the 60s. And she always had stuff at her house that said like Bell operator. Like she was a phone operator. And like that's what always comes into my head. So it's funny when you see these arguments on like cops and military, like operators our word. But like, dude, actually like that was used by telephone guys way before. Yeah. So it's just funny. Yeah.
So police detective. It just, like we tell people, hey, find work, right? If you're not doing something, find something to do, because there's always something to do on mission, right? Like if you're holding on a window, start calling off things or prepping stuff or getting things ready. Or if you're, whatever position you're in, there's always something for you to be doing.
Be proactive.
Yeah. And new guys, they just don't really understand that. So you beat it into them, which I had beat into me when I was coming through this. With that, you asked me, or like at some point during this, you were like, well, when did you decide to do this thing? I don't actually really remember when the mindset shifted to like, I can tell you I had this mindset of what's next? What am I doing? Like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Let's figure this out. I already have this photography thing going. Let's expand on that. Let's really try to drive that and start doing that. Man, I had no idea where that would take me. But in the interim, working with you, being in here, I used to make knives back in the day, so I kind of
used to help
understanding.
Out, like
so
doing that stuff here.
Yeah, like helping grind and stuff like that. And it just like, then our relationship kind of, grew. And then I started doing product photography for you. Like in the interim, like, I'll come here and I'll work on some knives and I'll get some shots, and the shots ended up working. And I started doing the next thing and coming in here and working with you, and then we did the product stuff, and it just kind of like grew. And then working with you, we forged this relationship, and then shooting these product stuff, I started my Instagram and I kind of started my company, and I was just like, man, I really gotta just use what I've learned from the teams and like use that drive and that focus and like, and the not being worried, like talking to people and really like driving into that. Kind of just the business kind of exploded, the business portion of it. It was interesting to have that transition and then see it. I just had kind of like these little successes, and I contribute that to what you learn is like, don't give up. It's not the end. I learned like my identity wasn't a police officer. My identity was that I had this drive and this, ability to extend up to higher levels. And I just kind of took that and ran with it. But I mean, having people to help you, like you helping me here, was probably the biggest thing that helped me throughout my journey forward, because the product photos that I took here and stuff like that, I now send to other companies as a reference of like, here's what I can do. And then they go, oh, wow, like you're doing that here, come do that for us. And that's kind of how the business all grew that way.
No, that's awesome, man. And I think that's such a huge point, right? Like a lot of times when guys, gals, like people have things that don't go in the manner that they planned. Like, hey, I have a vision for my life, and this is the trajectory I'm on. And then you get some stuff thrown on your graph that you were not expecting. A lot of times you can go into that like downward spiral of like, what's gonna happen? Oh my gosh, everything's over. Like I can't do anything else. And I think like identifying, like you said, like my identity was not in this military SWAT performance aspect. It was just being a performer. It was just being driven. It was just being high level in whatever thing you're going to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's huge.
And one of my buddies said it best to me, and like, I can't thank him enough for that, is he was just like, hey man, you did all the things. Like nobody could take that away from you. You've accomplished, you've gotten to the highest level you could get in this game. Yeah. It's really just riding it out until you're like broken or dead. Like that's the only next step for what I was doing, you know? Yeah. And yeah, I mean, coming out like, but I had a lot of support with the guys. I still talk to them. I'm still like, it's amazing to me that they still include me in stuff. Like in the back of your head, you're like, man, I messed up. Like I'm the broken, tainted thing now, you know? Like, but man, every aspect they've, you know, welcomed me with open arms, and it's been a crazy process in that aspect.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, like, we're all gonna mess up. Like, if you haven't messed up yet, it's gonna happen. We all do it. So just grace upon grace, man. Like,
and then like this is what I tell. This is what I've learned coming out of being police officer and into this civilian side of it. Is it's an interesting world. For one, you're not working with people. Even your lowest level beat cop that you know just sits and does nothing all day.
Minimal work.
Yeah. He's still, it's just different when you're working with him compared to working with a person that's never had this world or doesn't understand the responsibility of what we did, you know? It's sometimes frustrating to work with people where you're like, man, why don't you just tell me what you want? Or why don't you just, you know, like, why is this, why are we shit talking behind somebody's back? Did you actually go to them and talk to them to their face? Well, no, why would I do that? Well, that's the right thing to do, you know?
Should.
And just that, learning that from the teams of like working with a team, a small team, your ability to manage and work with teams and other people outside of here, in whatever field you choose, makes you a great asset. Yeah. And that's where like I try to instill with other cops and people transitioning or leaving out of PD is there is a world that you don't even know about of like teaching people just how to be a good teammate or hold them accountable or have some discipline to get the things done that you need to get done. Yeah. And that's where I think my business kind of took off is I would always answer the phone. Like I wouldn't say no to a project. I would just stay up later to get it done. I would do whatever it took to meet the criteria. And then I just didn't take things personal. Cause like in the teams when we're working and you make a mistake, like guys are gonna call you out and they should. Like when I first started, it wasn't like that. We transitioned into a culture where we would wanna be the best at what we did. So you made a bad entry. Hey man, I think I messed that up. Cool, yeah, I think you did too. Let's run it again or let's work on it so that we're not doing that in real time, right? So we just had that back and forth. So then when clients were coming to me and being like, hey, I want to change this or I want to do this, I'd be like, cool, whatever you think is best. I've met other creatives that are like, oh, but that's my art. Like I put so much time and effort and like these people don't know what they're talking about. And I said, but it's their vision. It's what you're trying to create, their branding, their voice, their style. 100%. It's not you. Yeah. And I carry around a little camera with me everywhere I go. And I take little shots here and there, and those are mine. I do whatever I want with them. I don't care. I just post it to my social. It doesn't matter to me. And that's my creative outlet if I want it. But answering the phone, owning up to your mistakes, you know, fixing them quickly and getting back. Like those are huge assets to companies that most people don't have. So that transition out of that into this has been really awakening.
I think the communication is huge, and I've seen that a ton just on like some of the companies we worked with or conversations I've had outside of my business with other businesses. Is like in our line of work, like you had to be prepared to get critiqued, and you had to self-critique because if you didn't, like I was always going to call myself out before someone else did because I didn't want to have to get called out, right? But then sometimes you deal with people and there's none of that going on within their team, so then things get missed and just stuff doesn't get done sometimes. Like, hey, like you come from a culture where there's not an option to do what you were told to do. Like, hey, if I need to do this, like I have to go do this.
Yeah,
it's not
I need it finished.
Yeah, it's not okay, maybe. Like it's, or you're not going to be like, oh, well, that's really not what my job is.
Yep.
Like you don't say those things. So I think understanding that and like using those keys and those things you learn and those things you develop and build, like there's so much things you can do after that career.
And that life experience, you know, like as a cop, you're talking to people all the time, and you're running 7 different businesses, even as a patrol officer, right? You're doing budgeting, you're doing, you know, you're working all the admin stuff, you're still going out there and being productive, which is kind of like going and finding work. Like you're out there all the time doing all these things that you just don't understand to translate into the civilian side until you actually do it. And then you're like, oh man, like,
this is like this.
Yeah, exactly. Like I get my paperwork done and I can talk to this person, I can lead these people. And, you know, even directing traffic, you're telling people where to go and what to do, you know? And it's just so applicable. But so many times I hear cops be like, I don't know what I want to do when I'm done. And it's like, man, there's a big wide world out there. And then on top of that, there's this whole new gold rush of coaching where it's like, you know, you having that ability to take things in, adapt, overcome, and like hold yourself accountable. Like to your point, I mean, I would, even now when I have big projects, like if I don't get it done or I'm not working on it, it eats me up. Like I can't just sit there and be like, oh, I'll just get to it. Like it's just not built in me that way, you know? But with this, it's exploded into traveling all over the world and doing all sorts of different projects for different people. And another big thing that happened to me is I went on LinkedIn and I found this CEO that I do all of his content creation for. And I came in early and he's like helped me grow immensely as well. And I got to sit in rooms with multimillionaires who speak only about how they do marketing and how they run their companies and the things, the mistakes they've made and the things they need. And then you start to transplant like the knowledge that you have into those things, and like these high level people are now looking at you going, oh, you know, you kind of know what I'm talking about. You know, understand pressure. You know how to get things done. You're willing to take on those things, you know? And he helped me immensely, like sending me to these programs, me being in these rooms. So like, you know, huge thanks to him for everything he did for me. And that gave me connections to other people. And now I feel like this game of what I do is all about connections. Like, you know, for instance, like I'm shooting a commercial and I'm now bringing you into that to help with, you know what I mean? And like, now I just want to bring all these people who help me along. Like, there's this band, I'm wearing their shirt now. And I had this goal of 6 months after all this stuff happened. I was like, I'm going to shoot bands. Like, I want to do this. I want to do something that's not like rudimented. I just want to have fun. Yeah. And I started shooting for them. And now I'm like part of the family with them and travel all over the country with them doing stuff too. And it's just this huge, now they're telling other people about me, and it's just like this big stair step of, you know, it doesn't always have to be about money. It's connections.
It's relationships, man. Yeah, it's relationships and building those, and just being good to people. Like, hey, people are good to you. Like, do it for them too, right? Like, when you can help people out, help them out. Like, I know people have helped me out, so now like for me to not help out someone that needs help, like it just doesn't make sense. And a lot of people are not that way.
Yeah, but the biggest humbling experience of this is like I lost a buddy, Ryan So, and I go to the hospital because I'm like, I knew this kid forever, and I go to the hospital and like the PD, the SAU guys are like, you're with us, come in. Like I'm there with them, I'm standing saluting him as he's going out, and like it was interesting to me to be like that. And this is the point I'm trying to make with this, is not, it's, you know, it's humbling to be still held at a high regard even after you make a mistake, right? But I feel like owning what your mistakes are and showing people that you're truly the man you say you are, man, that goes so far. And like other people allowing you to do that and to still take you in and bring you to that level it was very humbling, weird, you know, like I feel like I'm this tainted, broken thing, but I'm not, you know, and it's just an interesting change. Sure. And all these things keep happening, you know, it's been a process. Like one day you're going after felons, the next day you are one. And the whole process of that, like being on probation and all these things I never thought I would be on, you know, and understanding like the other side to what I've been doing it's insane. But
no, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So biggest, like what would be your biggest advice? Like if someone, like there's someone watching, there's someone listening that is going through an event where they're like, dude, this is it. Like things are over. My life has completely changed. Like what would be your biggest thing to tell them?
Man, it's a big world. Like PD is this much, and on top of that, there's a lot of money to be made out in this world. And what you make as a cop, and what everybody was resting their hat on of a pension, you know, you can make in 2 days out in this world. Like, you know, you could work 2 days a week and make as much as you're going to make on your pension for the rest of your life. You know, I mean, consistency, obviously. But I'd say you have the power to do what you like, something else. You know, don't identify as a cop. Love it. Do it to the fullest extent. Like, wear it out. Be happy that you are where you are. And just remember that when you have those shitty days. Like, some guys don't ever get to do it, and some guys did it and don't ever get to do it again. But then when it's time to be done, be done. Like, and if you are just not loving it anymore, there's, like I said, there's a big bad world out there. And yeah, it's weird. And then you may come 360, like I'm helping with social media at my old department. So it's this big circle of stuff. So
that's crazy. That's so cool though. Like, thanks so much for coming out and just,
I appreciate it,
talking. He's here anyway, because we're gonna film another one
every month.
But yeah, dude, no, it's awesome. And just listen to that, guys. Like, there's so much more. Like, one thing doesn't end everything. Like, it just doesn't. Like, there's so much more. There's more things you can do. There's other stuff out there. There's always an opportunity if you choose to see it and such. So, as always, dude, we'll end with a verse. Actually, tell them where they can find you and get your info.
You can find me on Troubled Seas Media, troubled_seas_media. On Instagram, and my website, troubledseasmedia.com. Feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to talk to people about my experience or knowledge that I have, or, you know, whatever you want to talk about. Feel free to reach out, DM me directly, and I will answer you. And stay tuned for his stuff, because it's going to be awesome and more to come. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, hey, this is Romans 5:3-5, and I think it's quite appropriate. It says, and we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Not only so, but we also rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that the suffering produces perseverance. Like, it does. Like, hardships make you stronger. Hardships make you persevere. Like, understand that things happen for you. Like, it may not always seem like it, but it does. So with that, thank you guys so much. Be awesome, and we'll catch you later.